The snow on East 74th Street wasn't the greeting card kind. It came down wet and heavy, soaking through Wren Calloway's wool coat and running cold down the back of her neck while she stood on the sidewalk across from the Harlow residences and looked up at the 32nd floor. The lights were on, warm amber, honey gold. She had spent 3 weeks choosing that exact bulb temperature, 2,700 Kelvin, because she wanted anyone inside to feel safe. She no longer felt safe. Maeve, 5 years old, was asleep on her shoulder. The little girl wore her pink puffer coat with the bare ears on the hood. Target, $12. Bought the week after Beckett canceled their joint credit card without telling her. Wren had been at the Bloomingdale's checkout when her card declined, and the cashier looked at her the way people look at someone they feel sorry for but will not help. 8 hours ago, Beckett had called. Board meeting voice, flat, precise, no warmth. Wren, I need you and Maeve out by 6. I have guests. She asked who. The pause lasted long enough to be its own answer. Work guests, he said. Can you take Maeve to Darcy's? She packed Maeve's bag. Sippy cup, stuffed rabbit named Button, called Darcy, no answer. Darcy was in Connecticut for the holidays. Wren had forgotten. So she stood here, $9.43. Phone at 6% battery. Her daughter sleeping on her shoulder in the Manhattan snow. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows on 32, 2 silhouettes moved in the golden light. One wore red, a dress that caught every warm beam, and the other had shoulders Wren could recognize in complete darkness. Beckett was pouring wine. He was laughing. She tried to remember the last time he laughed like that with her. She couldn't place it. Sometime before Maeve turned 3. Before the company hit 400 million, and Beckett started sleeping at the office. Mama, Maeve murmured without waking. Small hand tightening in Wren's hair. I know, baby, Wren whispered. I know. She opened Uber on her dying phone. Typed the only address she knew would have lights on tonight. Darcy's Cafe in Brooklyn. Darcy kept a spare key under the blue ceramic pot by the back door. She'd mentioned it 3 years ago, laughing. In case you ever need it. A silver Toyota Camry pulled up. The driver, 50s, kind eyes, looked at her and Maeve and said nothing, which was exactly right. Wren got in. The car pulled away. She did not look back at the building once. She found the right blue ceramic pot on the 3rd try. The key was cold and small and perfect in her palm. Inside gold thread coffee, Darcy's Cafe, hand-lettered above the door. Warmth hit like a wall. Coffee grounds and cinnamon, and the particular smell of a place that had been loved a long time. Wren set Maeve on the velvet love seat in the corner and wrapped her in the green knit blanket from the wall rack. Maeve didn't fully wake. She sighed and pulled the blanket tight. Wren made cocoa from the Ghirardelli powder in Darcy's second cabinet. Her hands shook badly enough to spill the first pour. She cleaned it. She made the cocoa. She sat. 3 knocks at the back door. Deliberate, not aggressive. She grabbed a milk frother off the counter, the only weapon available, and went to the door. Who is it? Ethan Solis. I'm not here to cause trouble. I saw the lights come on. I recognized you from the street earlier. I've been outside for 12 minutes deciding whether to knock. Everyone in Manhattan finance knew the name. Solis Ventures, Beckett's longest-running rival. She had met him once at the Metropolitan Club Gala, tall, early 40s, the kind of quiet that made people underestimate him. She opened the door 2 inches. He looked exactly as she remembered. Dark coat, no tie. An expression that suggested something had troubled him significantly tonight. You were standing outside the Harlow building, he said. In the snow, with your daughter, for 40 minutes. You were watching me? I was walking past. I recognized you. I kept walking, twice. Then I turned around. He met her eyes. I'm sorry it took me that long. She studied him. This was Beckett's competitor. Someone with every reason to use her situation against her. A stranger at a back door on Christmas Eve. He had come back. She opened the door. He stepped in, stamped snow from his shoes with the automatic courtesy of someone who respects other people's spaces. I have a daughter, he said immediately. She's 7, lives with her mother in Chicago. He stopped. I know what it looks like when someone is pretending they're fine. Wren poured him cocoa without asking. He sat across from her, reached into his coat, placed a small USB drive on the table between them. Mrs. Harlow, do you know why your husband really wanted you out of that apartment tonight? I assumed I already knew, she said. You don't, Ethan said quietly. Not even close. The USB had 47 files, photos, time-stamped emails, wire transfer records. One document titled Operation Windfall, Internal Memo. Eyes only. Wren read it twice, then a third time. She's not his mistress, she said. Her voice came out very calm, the way voices go calm when a brain refuses to process too much at once. This was never about him cheating. It started as both, Ethan said. Fletcher Voss, Sienna's brother, planted her 18 months ago. The goal was corporate intelligence. Get close enough to Beckett to access Harlow Capital's proprietary trading algorithms. The relationship was the method, and not the goal. Fletcher Voss is Beckett's attorney. Has been for 6 years. Wren pressed her fingers flat on the stainless steel prep table. Cool and solid and real. She focused on that. Fletcher used his own sister, she said. Fletcher controls his sister. There's a difference. Ethan's voice was measured. Sienna has a sealed prior from 2019. Securities fraud, minor, pled down. Fletcher has been holding it over her. She didn't volunteer for this. That doesn't make her innocent. No, it doesn't. Wren scrolled to a document dated November 14th, 8 weeks ago. A fabricated evidence file. Her name, her email address. Harlow Capital documents she had never seen, assembled to suggest that Wren Calloway Harlow had been leaking proprietary data to an outside competitor. Her hands went cold. If Beckett sees this before I can explain, he loses the company and you face criminal charges, Ethan said. That was Fletcher's failsafe. If the operation was ever discovered, you take the fall. Beckett is destroyed, the company destabilizes, and the acquisition fund moves in during the chaos. Acquisition fund. Fletcher isn't just protecting a spy operation. He's the point man for a Geneva-based hedge fund that's been building toward a hostile takeover of Harlow Capital for 18 months. Wren looked at the screen, found the Christmas Eve plan, documented. Fletcher had advised Beckett to remove non-essential personal occupants from the residence on December 24th for security protocol reasons. Beckett had believed him completely. Beckett hadn't kicked her out because he chose Sienna. He kicked her out because his attorney, the man he trusted with everything, told him to, wrapped in legal language. And Beckett had simply done it. It didn't absolve 6 years of distance and cold silences. But this specific night, this snow, this $9, this was designed. I need a lawyer, Wren said. I know one, Ethan said. Best family attorney in New York. She picks up on Christmas Eve. Call her. Priscilla Tanaka, 51, former federal prosecutor, unshockable. Tell me everything, she said on the phone. Don't edit. 11 minutes. No gaps, no softening. The call. The $9. The USB. The fabricated file with her name on it. 4 seconds of silence. My office. December 26th, 8 a.m. Don't speak to Beckett Harlow or anyone at the company. If anyone contacts you before then, 3 words. I have counsel. Okay. Is the child with you? Yes. Keep her close. On December 26th, Priscilla laid out 2 hours of damage assessment across a Park Avenue conference table. The divorce filing. December 23rd. 1 day before Christmas Eve. That part Wren had expected. What she hadn't. The filing included a civil protective order request alleging that Wren had engaged in financially harmful behavior and deliberate breach of marital confidentiality. Language that, if accepted, would freeze every asset in Wren's name and restrict her access to Maeve. Fletcher had signed it personally. He's boxing you out completely, Priscilla said. No money, no home. Reduced access to your child. This is the full erasure. Can we stop it? We counter it. Yeah, but I need 72 hours, which means you cannot be served any additional documents before then. Where are you staying that has no paperwork attached to your name? The storage room behind my best friend's cafe. Perfect. That afternoon, Wren's joint account showed 0. Her personal savings, $14,000, 6 years of careful accumulation, also 0. Drained at 11:47 p.m. on Christmas Eve, while she slept with Maeve curled against her in the storage room. She sat with that number a long time. 0. She thought about the pink Target coat, the spare key, the milk frother she'd grabbed as a weapon, all the small preparations she'd made without knowing she was preparing. She had Priscilla. She had Ethan's files. She had a daughter currently drawing a dragon on the back of a business card. Mrs. Harlow, Priscilla said. This gets harder before it gets easier. I know, Wren said. Do you? She looked at Maeve. Small hand moving the crayon. Total concentration. Completely unaware of how much the world had just shifted. Yes, Wren said. Let's start. The storage room behind Gold Thread Coffee, 8 by 10 feet. Space heater that sounded like an asthmatic cat. Seasonal napkins on the shelf. A folding cot that was the safest place Wren had slept in 2 weeks. Darcy returned from Connecticut on December 27th. Walked in, found Wren working by flashlight, set her bag down without a word, put the kettle on, made 2 teas, sat down and said, Tell me everything. Darcy Okafor had been Wren's best friend for 11 years. 34 years old, ran her cafe with military precision, and possessed the particular gift of making whoever was in front of her feel like the most important person in the world. She would go to war without being asked. 3 rules. No social media. No calls on Wren's registered devices. And Maeve keeps her routine. Same school, same music class, same pickup time. Routine is armor for children, Darcy said. Don't disrupt it. It worked for 9 days. January 4th. Darcy came in from the street, face tight. Someone across the road. Long lens camera. Wren didn't move. How long? Long enough. A private investigator, hired, they'd learn later, by Fletcher Voss's firm, had shot 340 photographs over 4 days. That evening, an anonymous note appeared under the cafe's back door. Handwritten, no address. Step back. I won't warn you again. Wren photographed it, bagged it, texted it to Priscilla. Her hands didn't stop shaking for 10 minutes. Maeve found her on the cot afterward. Mama, why is your face like that? Like what, baby? Like when you're trying not to be scared. Wren opened her arms. Maeve climbed in with Button the rabbit. "I'm just tired," Wren said. "That's different from scared," Maeve said firmly. "I know both." "You're right, you do." "When are we going home?" "We're getting a new place, a really good one." "With a yard?" "I'll try." "With a room for Ember?" Ember was the dragon, who had apparently taken up residence. "Ember gets her own corner," Wren said. She kissed the top of Maeve's head and stared at her architectural sketches. The same building she'd been designing in her head for 6 years, but the one she'd never had time for, because she spent those years supporting Beckett's vision instead of building her own. Conrad Harlow knocked at the back door at 7 a.m. on January 6th. 3 steady beats, his camel overcoat, his battered gray fedora, the knock of a man who had waited too long and knew it. Wren opened the door. He looked at her, then passed her at Maeve eating oatmeal with the focused gravity of a child performing a sacred ritual. Something crossed his face. Not quite guilt, but close. The look of a man calculating the precise weight of his silence. He sat across from Wren and placed his hands flat on the prep table. A Harlow family gesture she'd learned meant, "I am about to say something I cannot take back." I introduced Sienna Voss to my son. The sentence landed like something dropped from a great height. She was introduced to me by a board member. Charming, credentialed. I brought her to the Metropolitan Club Gala in March. I introduced her to Beckett personally. He paused. I did not know what she was. But you suspected something was wrong. 3 months later, I could see Beckett changing, pulling away from you, making decisions that didn't track. I told myself it was stress. He stopped. I told myself it wasn't my responsibility. And you were wrong. Completely. Maeve finished her oatmeal, carried her bowl to the sink, rinsed it carefully, went back to her coloring without looking at Conrad. He watched her the entire time. "She looks like you," he said quietly. "She always has." He placed a document packet on the table. Inside, 4 months of Conrad's own investigation. And Fletcher Voss had been receiving payments from a Cayman shell company connected to the Geneva Acquisition Fund. The fund had been quietly buying minority positions in Harlow Capital competitors for 18 months. The final target, Harlow Capital itself. Fletcher had been executing a hostile takeover from the inside, using Beckett's trust as the primary tool. "Beckett doesn't know," Wren said. "Beckett trusts people who never surprise him," Conrad said. Fletcher never challenged him, never questioned him. Beckett called that loyalty. It was management. Yes. Wren looked at the packet. "There's something else." Conrad's voice went careful. "Beckett's signature appears on 4 transactions Fletcher processed, without Beckett's full understanding. If this reaches federal court without careful framing, Beckett could be criminally implicated in something he didn't knowingly do." She sat with that a long time. "I need to think," she finally said. Conrad stood, put on his hat. "I can't ask for forgiveness," he said. "I'm asking to be useful now, since I failed to be useful before." The photograph sat on the prep table for 48 hours. Wren looked at it while she drew, while Maeve slept. At 2 a.m. on January 7th, when she was the only person awake in all of Gold Thread Coffee, and the sleet tapped the window, and the world had narrowed to 8 by 10 feet of storage room and one impossible decision. Beckett at the Ritz-Carlton, smiling, relaxed. It could mean he was complicit. It could mean he was being handled. She had been married to this man for 7 years. She knew the difference between Beckett calculating and Beckett simply present. In every memory she had of him genuinely at ease, He was in rooms where he felt seen, not admired, not managed. Seen. Fletcher had been managing Beckett for 6 years, giving him enough success to feel confident, enough validation to feel loyal, enough dependence to stop questioning the one man who always had answers. That was the photograph. A managed man having dinner with people his manager had selected. She couldn't be certain, but she was certain enough. She made 3 calls before 8 a.m. Call 1, Priscilla, split the evidence into 2 tracks. Everything pointing to Fletcher and Sienna goes to the FBI and SEC immediately. Everything touching Beckett's signatures gets packaged separately, presented to the Harlow Capital Board with full context first, giving Beckett the chance to cooperate before any federal body sees it. Call 2, Ethan. Are you still in contact with your FBI Financial Crimes Liaison? Yes. Set up a meeting. This week. Done. Call 3, Conrad. I need the board chair's personal number by noon. He sent it in 4 minutes. She spent the morning in the cafe's corner booth, drafting the most important document she'd ever written. Not a legal filing. A letter. Addressed to Beckett. No salutation. 6 paragraphs of the most undecorated truth she'd ever put to paper. What she knew, what she'd pieced together, what she believed about his role, what she believed he hadn't understood. And at the end, you have a choice to make, not about me, about who you are when no one is managing the decision for you. I need your answer before January 9th. She sealed it, gave it to Conrad to deliver by hand. Don't read it, she said. I wouldn't, he said. She believed him. The New York Post story ran at 2:47 p.m. By 3:30, Page 6, Business Insider, and 3 financial aggregators had picked it up. By 4 o'clock, Wren's former architecture firm called twice, not to offer support, but to say gently that her name appearing alongside corporate espionage made any professional relationship complicated. By 5 o'clock, Maeve's school called. The head of the preschool program, a woman Wren had always liked, and who remembered every child's birthday, said carefully that several families have expressed concern, and asked whether Wren had any comment on the reports. No, Wren said. I'll pick Maeve up at the usual time. Of course, at the usual time, Wren said. She hung up. The landlord of the building above Goldthread, where Darcy had been quietly negotiating a month-to-month studio for Wren, called Darcy and said the arrangement would not be moving forward. Wren picked up Maeve at 5:15. The school lobby felt different, not hostile, but careful. The particular texture of a room where people have been talking about you and stop when you walk in. Maeve ran out in her pink bear ear coat with a new drawing, a castle for Ember, and noticed nothing wrong because she was 5, and the castle required immediate narration. Back at the cafe, Darcy had closed early and sent the staff home. Just the 3 of them. She made pasta with butter and parmesan, Maeve's favorite, because it was the right thing to make when everything was falling apart. Maeve ate it happily, resolved a diplomatic crisis between Ember and a rival dragon named Storm, and asked to be excused. Darcy put her to bed. Wren sat at the prep table, not crying. Past crying. The state people reach when the body has run out of signal, and there is only the cold, quiet sensation of pure assessment. How bad? What can be fixed? What cannot? She's going to be okay, right? Wren said. No matter how this goes, Maeve is okay. Yes, Darcy said. Because you are the kind of person who asks that question first. Wren put her head down on her arms on the cool steel table. 8 minutes. She counted them. 8 minutes of being completely undone, no audience but Darcy, who sat across from her and held the room steady. Then she lifted her head. "Call Priscilla," she said. "Sienna went to the press because she's scared. Scared people leave tracks." At 6:20 p.m. on January 7th, while Wren counted 8 minutes at Darcy's prep table, Beckett Harlow sat in an emergency board session at Harlow Capital. Patricia Chen, board chair, laid out 4 transactions bearing his signature, each routing capital through entities that appeared standard, and each on independent audit, traceable to the Geneva Acquisition Fund. "I signed these," Beckett said. "Yes." Fletcher presented them as standard settlement mechanics. "That appears to be what he told you." "They are not standard settlement mechanics." "No." Beckett thought about 6 years of Fletcher Voss. The way he always had answers. The way every problem dissolved cleanly in his hands. The way Beckett had called that loyalty. "Get me Fletcher's personal communication files. Tonight." He read for 2 hours. The message he found was from September 12th. Fletcher to Sienna's personal email. "She's getting suspicious. Handle the Christmas situation and get the final data package by the 26th. Make sure Wren is not in the apartment for the extraction. And make sure there's enough on record to discredit her if she figures it out. After the 26th, she becomes our problem, not our concern. Make sure Wren is not in the apartment." He thought about the call he'd made December 24th. The board meeting voice. "I need you and Maeve out by 6. He'd felt almost nothing making that call. Just a task. An instruction from Fletcher dressed as security protocol, absorbed and executed without friction. Make sure Wren is not in the apartment. He had a voicemail from his father. "Beck, call me. Not about the company. About what you've done to your family." He had an email, a hand-delivered sealed envelope forwarded by his building's front desk. From Conrad, containing a letter with no salutation. Just his name at the top, and 6 paragraphs. "You have a choice to make. Not about me, about who you are when no one is managing the decision for you." He was still reading when Fletcher walked in without knocking. "I heard you pulled the communication files," Fletcher said. "I found the September email," Beckett said. His voice was very even. "You put my wife and daughter in the snow on Christmas Eve so your sister could steal from my company. You built a false file with Wren's name on it as insurance, and you've been selling my company to a Geneva hedge fund from the inside." He stood. "Get out of my building." "Beck, you need counsel before—" "You were my counsel," Beckett said. "Get out." 10 p.m. Wren activated 3 tracks simultaneously. Track 1, Ethan's FBI and SEC channel, the full Fletcher Voss evidence package. Every wire transfer, every communication, every shell company trace. Delivered electronically with a cover memo from Priscilla establishing Wren's full cooperation. Sent at 10:03 p.m. SAS Track 2. Priscilla's counter motion, responding to Fletcher's fabricated evidence, supported by Conrad's documentation, the USB files, and a cybersecurity declaration from Ethan's team confirming that emails attributed to Wren's account showed external manipulation metadata. Filed electronically at 10:11 p.m. with emergency review requested before the January 9th custody hearing. Track 3. Morgan Adler at ProPublica. 14 months into an investigation on foreign acquisition strategies targeting American financial firms. Wren sent her the corporate intelligence package through encrypted transfer. Shell companies, fund principals, acquisition timeline. Not the personal materials, not the custody case. Only what belonged to the public record. When she signed the cover note. Source, someone who was meant to disappear. Sent all three at 10:17 p.m. She sat in the storage room with Maeve warm and sleeping 2 feet away, and felt the particular stillness that comes after a very large thing has been set in motion. Nothing left to do but let it move. Darcy appeared with 2 mugs. Chamomile. You need to sleep. Did you do what you needed to do? Darcy asked. Yes. She sat on the floor with her back against the doorframe, the way they used to sit in their NYU dorm. Backs to the wall, talking until 3 a.m. about everything. She's going to grow up so proud of you, Darcy said. She doesn't know any of this is happening. Kids always know more than we think. They remember the feeling even when they forget the facts. Wren looked at Maeve, and the slow rise and fall of her breathing, Button the rabbit tucked under her arm. I want her to know what it looks like when someone doesn't quit, Wren said. Not because it worked out, just what it looks like to decide not to. She'll know, Darcy said. She's watching. Wren drank her chamomile tea and let herself feel for the first time in weeks like she might actually be okay. They met at a Starbucks on Atlantic Avenue at 8 a.m. on January 8th. Not the Sienna from the page 6 photos, red dress, polished, assembled for maximum impact. This Sienna wore a dark puffer, no makeup, hair pulled back, the eyes of someone who hadn't slept and had spent most of that time crying. Wren ordered black coffee, sat across from her. No greeting. Talk, Wren said. It started in 2019. A securities charge, minor. A miscalculation in her first year. The kind of thing that would have been a suspended sentence, except Fletcher made sure his name wasn't attached. Just Sienna's. And then he held it over her head for 5 years. He told me Beckett was unhappy, that you'd drifted apart, that you were both just waiting for it to end. She swallowed. I needed to believe it enough to keep going. Christmas Eve, Wren said. You were already in the building when he called me. Yes. You saw us on the hallway camera. Sienna was quiet. A 5-year-old, Wren said, in the snow. I asked Fletcher to call it off. He said it was done. Her voice went thin. I went back to the apartment and told myself you had other options. We had $9. Sienna looked at the table. Fletcher told you to run last night, Wren said. Why didn't you? Sienna placed a cracked screen phone on the table. Unlocked. A message thread. The last text from Fletcher, sent at 11:43 p.m. Get out tonight. If you cooperate with any investigation, I will release the 2019 materials plus 3 years of documentation showing you were the architect of the full operation. You will do 20 years. I will do 0. Leave tonight. He always planned to give me up, Sienna said. From the beginning, if it failed, I was the only one holding it. What do you want? I want to testify, all of it. The fund, the acquisition plan, the evidence file with your name on it. Once I'm on record as a cooperating witness, the 2019 materials lose their leverage. Wren sat back, looked at this woman who had sat in her apartment while her daughters stood in the snow, so she said none of the things she had the right to say. Priscilla Tanaka is my attorney, Wren said. She'll draw up the agreement. I won't stand in the way of justice moving in the right direction. She stood, picked up her coffee, walked out. Outside, she texted Priscilla. She's in. Proceed. Fletcher Voss was arrested at Zurich Airport by Swiss Federal Police on January 9th at 6:15 a.m. local time, coordinated through an Interpol notice filed by the FBI at 3 a.m. Eastern. The Swiss had been building their own case on the Geneva Fund for 11 months. The Americans had just handed them the final piece. In New York, while the international machinery moved, Conrad Harlow walked into the Harlow Capital Board meeting at 9 a.m. and did the thing he should have done in September. He told the full truth. Not a curated version, but not the one that positioned him favorably. He had introduced Sienna Voss to his son. He had noticed something wrong 3 months later. He had said nothing. I told myself it wasn't my place, he said. That Beckett was a grown man. I said a lot of things that were comfortable and true in a small way, and absolutely insufficient in a large one. Patricia Chen. You've been on this board 22 years, Conrad. Yes. And you'd like to resign. Immediately. He submitted the letter before he left the room. That afternoon, he drove to Gold Thread Coffee. Wren was in the corner booth with her laptop, working on something. He could see from the doorway that whatever she was drawing had the fluid, confident line quality of someone who had stopped second-guessing her own judgment. He sat across from her. And I heard about the board, she said. It was the right thing. Yes, it was. Wren, I would like, if you're willing, to be present at the custody hearing this afternoon. Not to testify, not to involve myself legally, just to be there, as Maeve's grandfather. She looked at him. She asked me about you last week, Wren said. She asked if grandfathers could change. I told her some things change form but don't disappear. She thought about it and said that's like water turning into ice. Conrad's expression did something complicated. She's remarkable, he said. She is. Wren looked back at her drawing. The hearing is at 2 p.m. room 7B. Sit in the gallery, not our section. Understood. He left. Wren sat for a moment, looking at her architectural drawing, the one she'd been designing in her head for 6 years, and now on paper, moving with the velocity of someone finally unobstructed. Hey, Darcy said, appearing with a fresh pour-over. You eating today or just working? Both, Wren said. I'm always both. Room 7B of Manhattan Family Court. Fluorescent lights. Brick wall outside the window. 12 rows of gallery seating. Unglamorous and real. And today, the most important room in Wren Calloway's life. Judge Meredith Alcott, 57, silver hair, the considered patience of someone who has presided over 10,000 variations of human failure without becoming cynical about it. Set down her reading glasses and looked at both parties. Fletcher's abrupt departure had forced Beckett to restructure his legal team overnight. His new attorney, Isabel Drew, calm, precise, opened with a statement no one expected. Your Honor, the respondent withdraws all prior motions filed by his former counsel, including the protective order request and all allegations in the December 23rd filing. Those filings were prepared by an attorney now identified as operating in direct conflict with his client's interests. They do not represent Mr. Harlow's actual position. The courtroom went very quiet. Mr. Harlow supports primary physical custody of Maeve with her mother, Wren Calloway, and requests standard shared parenting for visitation. Judge Alcott looked directly at Beckett. You understand what you are agreeing to? Yes, Your Honor. And you are here of your own volition, without duress? Yes. All right. She signed. 4 minutes. Outside in the hallway, the door opened, and Maeve came out of the children's waiting area at a full run. Pink puffer coat, the bare ears, Button the rabbit, a drawing of a castle and a dragon, and 2 figures holding hands. She hit Wren at full speed. Wren went down to her knees on the courthouse floor, not gracefully, just instantly, without hesitation, and wrapped both arms around her daughter. She did not try not to cry. She cried the way you cry when you've held something enormous for 3 weeks and the container finally gets to stop. Maeve patted her back with her small hand. Pat, pat, pat. The way Wren always comforted her, returned now, perfectly. It's okay, Mama, Maeve said seriously. I'm here. I know, baby. Are we going home now? We're going somewhere good, I promise. From the gallery doorway, Conrad stood with his hat in his hands and said nothing. From the far end of the hallway, Beckett stood and watched his daughter comfort his wife and thought about a letter with no salutation. About who you are when no one is managing the decision for you. Fletcher Voss was arraigned on February 2nd. The charges: wire fraud, securities fraud, conspiracy to commit corporate espionage, obstruction of justice, and one count of making false statements in a family court proceeding. The last charge added by a federal prosecutor who had read the protective order filing against Wren and found it personally offensive. He entered a not guilty plea. Bail set at $2 million. The Geneva Fund's principals, cooperating with Swiss investigators to avoid extradition, declined to post it. Fletcher Voss sat in a federal holding facility in Lower Manhattan and looked at the ceiling and understood, for the first time, the geometry of what he had built. A structure designed to collapse on a single person. And he had miscalculated which person that would be. Sienna Voss appeared 3 days later for a cooperation agreement signing. 8 hours of recorded testimony over 2 days. Precise, complete, not minimizing her own role while naming every decision Fletcher had made and every instruction she had followed. The U.S. Attorney's Office described her testimony as substantially complete and materially significant to the prosecution. In exchange, the 2019 charge formally expunged, no jail time, barred from financial services for 10 years, 500 hours of community service. She left New York 2 weeks later, went to her mother's house in Portland, Oregon, a small house with a garden. She didn't post about it anywhere. She just went. Onto the ProPublica story ran on February 14th, 6,400 words. Full document appendix. Most read investigative piece on the site that year. 3 Senate committee members requested SEC briefings within the week. The story did not name Wren as the source. It described a company insider deliberately positioned as a scapegoat. Beckett was interviewed by federal investigators 3 times. He brought Isabel Drew, answered every question fully, provided every document without delay. He was not charged. Investigators' notes described him as a cooperative witness whose apparent role was that of an uninformed principal rather than a knowing participant. On the day Fletcher's trial date was formally set, April 17th, Beckett drove to Gold Thread Coffee alone. No driver. A gray Saturday. Sat at the counter. Didn't ask for Wren. Darcy refilled his cup without being asked. She's not here, Darcy said. I know. I just needed somewhere connected to her that wasn't about anything I needed to ask. Darcy considered him. How's it going? She asked. He looked at his coffee. Slowly, but it's going. Beckett moved out of the East 74th Street penthouse on February 8th. 2-bedroom apartment in the West Village. No doorman. Slightly sticky buzzer. A radiator that knocked pleasantly in the early morning. Maeve's room. He asked her what color. She said green. Like Ember's scales. He painted it himself. 2 coats, 1 full can of bare premium forest green. A drop cloth he didn't lay down properly, leaving 3 small green footprints near the window he couldn't remove. When Maeve first saw them, she said they looked like a tiny dinosaur had visited. I'll fix them, he said. Don't, she said firmly. They're Ember's footprints. He drove Maeve to school every Tuesday and Thursday, picked her up every Friday, attended every available parent meeting and sat in the small chairs meant for children, and took notes in the margin of his phone with the focus he once gave quarterly earnings calls. Never missed, never late. He started therapy in February. Because Wren's letter described a pattern he recognized immediately and had been refusing to name for 36 years. "You know how to build things," she had written. "But you've never learned to stay in a room when it gets uncomfortable. The moment anything becomes uncertain, you find someone to manage the uncertainty for you. And you call it trust. That's not trust, but that's outsourcing your discomfort." His therapist, Dr. Raymond Ashby, said something similar in their third session. "You've been running a corporation since you were 29, but emotionally, you've been running the same defense since you were 12. That's when your mother left, correct?" It took 6 more sessions before Beckett could talk about it without leaving the room first. He did not pursue Wren. He did not send gifts. He did not engineer chance encounters. He showed up for Maeve. He called when he said he would. He remembered that her rabbit was named Button, not Buttons, and she was very particular about this. One Tuesday, picking up Maeve, he found a folded note in her backpack. A drawing, Wren's precise architectural line style, miniaturized by 5-year-old hands, something that looked like a building. Sitting on the back, in Maeve's handwriting, "For Daddy's green room." He put it on the wall above the radiator. The following Saturday at Gold Thread Coffee, Darcy said, "You eating today or just the coffee?" "Just the coffee," he said. "Same time next week?" "Same time," he said. The equity settlement finalized on March 15th. $96 million. The Harlow Capital Board did not contest it. Patricia Chen sent a personal note with the wire confirmation. "This should have been corrected years ago. I am sorry it wasn't." Wren kept the note, put it in a folder, did not look at it again. The apology was noted. The money was present. Those were the only things that needed to be true. She sat in Priscilla's office after signing and looked at her account balance for approximately 90 seconds. Then she called Martin Chase, a former colleague from her architecture years, who ran a Tribeca development consultancy. "I need office space, 3 rooms, ground floor, natural light, Brooklyn. I'm starting a firm." "What kind?" "Architecture and community design. Commercial revenue funds pro bono work. I want to build things that serve neighborhoods that get overlooked." She had already filed the LLC Calloway Studio, PLLC. She had already retained a 3-person team. 2 architects from her former firm who had been waiting for something different, and a structural engineer named Teodora Vasquez, who was the best in her Columbia class and had spent 7 years at a firm that didn't deserve her. She had already been in contact with the NYC Community Development Corporation about the South Bronx site. The same project she had been designing in her head for 6 years, refined in storage rooms and cafe back corners and 2 AM windows. She had a name for the building, the Maeve Center, a center for children and families navigating parental separation, counseling, legal resources, learning spaces, a rooftop garden. On the parapet, worked into the architectural detail, a carved relief panel she had commissioned from a local sculptor. A dragon. She told Maeve about it on a Sunday afternoon in their new apartment in Carroll Gardens. 2 bedrooms, afternoon light coming through the south window in a particular diagonal that made the kitchen gold from 3 to 5 p.m. "My name," Maeve said. "In your name." "For real?" "For real." "Will Ember be in it?" "On the roof." "Dragons need to be high up," Maeve said. "Good call." Ethan Solis attended the soft launch on April 4th, held in the ground floor space with paper cups of Darcy's coffee and a hand-lettered paper sign taped to the window. "This is the real thing," he said, looking at the renderings on the wall. "Yes," Wren said. "It is. I'd like to invest 10% minority, no board seat, no say in community project decisions, in writing." She thought about it for 3 days, then called him. "Done. Send the paperwork." He showed up on a Saturday in April with paint on his forearms. Not strategy. He had been repainting Maeve's baseboards. She'd decided they needed to be a lighter green. A different green, on Daddy, and hadn't changed before driving over to return her raincoat left in his car. Wren opened the door, saw the paint, said nothing. "Maeve's coat," he said. "Come in. She's eating lunch." Maeve launched herself at him with the full-body enthusiasm of a child who has no complicated feelings about her father and simply misses him. He held on and looked over her head at the apartment. The south window light, the drawings on the kitchen wall, the dragon Wren had sketched in pencil on the corner of Maeve's art whiteboard. It looked like somewhere someone had built on purpose. "I saw the rendering for the Maeve Center," he said, "on the studio page. What did you think?" "I thought it was the best thing you've ever designed." She was washing dishes. She didn't stop. "It might be." Maeve tugged his sleeve. "Daddy, or want to see my room here? I have Ember's footprints." He followed her through the apartment, listening to the ongoing diplomatic situation between Ember and a new rival dragon named Gale, while Wren stood at the sink and thought about 7 years of a marriage. The space between what a thing appeared to be and what it actually was. The failure of her marriage wasn't only Beckett's. 3 months of her own therapy, Tuesday afternoons with Dr. Sandra Kim, had shown her that. She had made herself smaller in a space she helped build and called it sacrifice. She had stopped speaking plainly when plainness felt uncomfortable and called it consideration. She had confused support with disappearance. That was not Beckett's fault alone. It didn't change Christmas Eve. It didn't change $9. And those things had happened and would always have happened. She would not revise them. But the story was not one-directional. Beckett came back through the kitchen and stopped at the counter. "Can I ask you something?" "Ask." "The rooftop garden. What materials are you using for the planters?" She blinked. "Core 10 steel with cedar liner panels. Why?" "I know a supplier. Sustainable sourcing, good pricing, community project experience. I can just send you the contact. I'm not inserting myself." She looked at him. Not a grand gesture, not an apology wrapped in a gift. A contact, practical and useful, given without expectation. "Send it," she said. Maeve tugged his sleeve. "Daddy, are you staying for lunch?" He looked at Wren. She looked at her daughter, looking between them with the calm certainty of a child who believes the people she loves are capable of being in the same room. The south window light came through in its afternoon diagonal and made the whole kitchen gold. "There's enough soup," Wren said. The Maeve Center opened June 21st. 4 stories. Core 10 steel exterior. Floor-to-ceiling south windows. A rooftop garden visible from the street as a band of green above the rust-red facade. And at the corner of the roofline, in a carved relief panel on the parapet, a dragon. Not conspicuous, not decorative, just present, if you knew to look. Maeve found it the moment they arrived, pointed at it with the authority of someone identifying their own property. "There," she said. "Ember." Wren had declined 3 TV interview requests and 1 national morning show. She'd agreed to 1 written profile in Architectural Record on the condition that focus stay on the building's community model, not her personal story. She wore a linen dress in pale terracotta because Maeve had pointed at it in a Carroll Gardens vintage shop and said, "That's the color of the building, Mama." At 10 a.m., she stood at the entrance with Maeve and spoke for 4 minutes, no notes. She said, "This building is for children who live through things they didn't choose. For families who need help and shouldn't have to look far to find it. For every person who has ever been frozen out of somewhere they called home and decided to build something new instead." She and Maeve cut the ribbon together. Maeve wielded the scissors with the gravity of a head of state. Darcy had set up the coffee station. Ethan Solis stood in the second row talking with Martin Chase. Conrad sat in a folding chair in the back, not the family section, just present as agreed, in his camel coat and battered fedora. Priscilla arrived in slate gray and said quietly to Wren, "6 months ago you had $9. "And a spare key?" Wren said. "Don't undersell the key." Late morning. The program was over. The rooftop was full of children asking loud questions about whether the dragon on the parapet was actually real or just looked real. Maeve was explaining its complete biography to 3 children she had met 20 minutes ago, with the authority of a published expert. Wren stood at the south window on the 2nd floor. The Children's Learning Center, open shelving and reading nooks and good light. Exactly what she had drawn in her head at 2 a.m. in a storage room in Brooklyn, and looked at what she had made. A footstep behind her. She knew it before she turned. Beckett stood in the doorway with paint, somehow always paint, on the edge of his left thumb from touching up the rooftop garden railing that morning. He had not announced himself. He had just come, the way you show up for things that matter without making a production of whether you're wanted. "It's extraordinary," he said. "I know," she said, simply. It was the truth. He came to stand beside her. They looked at the city, water towers and brick and new construction and the permanent sky above all of it. "I want to ask you something," he said. "I know." "You know what I'm going to ask?" "I know what you want to ask. I don't know if you're ready to." He was quiet. Below on the rooftop, Maeve was resolving a dispute about the dragon's territory with 3 new friends. He watched her. "I want another chance," he said. Not with efficiency, not with the calculation of a man making an offer. He said it the way a person says something they have been building the courage to say for a very long time. Not to resume what we had. What we had wasn't working for either of us, even before everything fell apart. I want to start from a real place, with the actual version of who I am now, with the actual version of who you are now, which is someone I keep being completely in awe of. Wren looked at him. The person she had loved for 9 years, who had been managed and manipulated and had allowed both because he was more comfortable being handled than seen, who had painted a room forest green with improper drop cloth technique and left the footprints because his daughter said they belonged to a dragon, who had sent a planter-supplier contact without expectation and shown up today with paint on his thumb. "I'm not going back," she said. "Understand that first. I won't go back to what it was. I know. If we do anything, we build something different, with the actual materials of who we are now." "Yes." "I'm not saying yes. I know that too." She paused. "I'm saying I'm not saying no. And that's the most honest thing I can tell you right now." Beckett held it, the way you hold something fragile you've been given to carry, understanding the importance of not dropping it. "That's enough," he said. That's more than enough. They stood at the south window while the city did what cities do. Indifferent and alive, and full of people trying to build something worth keeping. And below them, in the rooftop garden of the building she had made from $9 and a spare key and 6 years of drawings in the dark, Maeve Calloway Harlow looked up from her summit, found both her parents in the same window, and waved. They both waved back. And that's where our story ends, my amazing friends. If you've made it all the way here, I mean right here, to this very moment, then something in this story touched you. Maybe it was Wren standing in the snow with $9 and a sleeping child on her shoulder. Maybe it was the moment she stopped waiting to be saved and started building. Maybe it was just the feeling of watching someone refuse to quit when every single thing said, "Give up." Here's what I want you to carry with you today. The Stoics believed that we don't control what happens to us, only how we respond. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Wren didn't have money. She didn't have a home. She had clarity about who she was, what she owed her daughter, and what she refused to become. That clarity was the power. And Viktor Frankl, who survived things none of us can imagine, said, "When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves." That's the real story here. Not the revenge, not the $96 million. It's a woman who walked through the worst night of her life and came out the other side building something with her daughter's name on it. If this story meant something to you, please share it with someone who needs it today. Hit that like button. It helps more people find stories that actually matter. And if you're new here, subscribe, because we tell stories like this every single week. Stories about real strength, real healing, real human beings. Thank you for being here. Genuinely. See you in the next one. This is an original fictional drama created for entertainment and emotional storytelling purposes. All characters, including Wren Calloway, Beckett Harlow, Sienna Voss, Fletcher Voss, Maeve, Darcy Okafor, Conrad Harlow, Ethan Solis, and Priscilla Tanaka, are entirely fictional and do not represent any real individuals, living or deceased. All events, locations as used in narrative context, company names, and situations depicted in this story are products of creative imagination and are not intended to represent real events or actual persons. Any resemblance to real people, real organizations, or actual events is purely coincidental. This story was written to explore themes of resilience, betrayal, healing, family, and personal strength. Values we believe resonate deeply with real human experience. No real legal advice, financial advice, or relationship advice is implied or intended. If you or someone you know is experiencing a difficult personal situation, please seek support from qualified professionals. And this channel is dedicated to original dramatic storytelling. All scripts are independently created and owned by this channel.